Hi, welcome to my channel. Have you ever had a time where God had an obvious assignment for you to do and you did not want to do it, right? So I myself have been in that type of situation and have resisted and avoided and but God kept bringing the assignment before me. And so this is something we're going to talk about today because God is always calling us to do his work. If we are willing, he has great works for us to do. Even though that's not what earns our way to heaven, right? It is, being in God's kingdom, you always be called to do more or take on a responsibility or use the gifts and talents that God has given you for his glory. And it's really our ministry of reconciliation, helping other people know God. It could be, a challenging situation. Maybe we're, in a situation where it's someone who is having a hard time facing something and you're the person that God has put it on your heart to help them kind of look at this thing that could be hurting them. So sometimes that's difficult, because sometimes it's challenging to talk to people about something they may not see, even though it's all in love, right? It can still be awkward. So let's look at Jonah, all right, in chapter 1 and see how he responds to God's assignment. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord, right? And this actually cracks me up because, can Jonah flee from the Lord? Can any of us ever get away from the Lord? He sees everything. So this cracked me up. But it's something, any of us would probably think about doing, right? We may do it in ways of avoiding God or, avoiding the person he's wanting us to help or talk to, or, avoiding, that whatever business he's put on our heart to start or anything, writing a book, that God's put on your heart. And it's like, okay, this journey is harder than I thought it would be. So right now I'm kind of going to avoid it. And, but God keeps putting it on your heart. So, we can kind of relate to what Jonah is going through. It's he sees what God's calling him to, but he's trying to avoid it. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. All the sailors were afraid and cried out to his own God, little God. So they had idols they cried out to. And they threw the cargo into the sea and lightened the ship. But Jonah had gone below the deck, where he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. The captain went to him and said, "How can you sleep? Get up and call on your God." And they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But Jonah had gone below the deck, and he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. The captain went to him and said, "How can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us, that we will not perish." Then the sailors said to each other, "Come, let us cast lots to find out who is responsible for this calamity." They cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. So they asked him, "Tell us, who is responsible for making all this trouble for us? What kind of work do you do? Where do you come from? What is your country? From what people are you? He answered, I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. This terrified them, and they asked, what have you done? They knew he was running away from the Lord because he had already told them so. The sea was getting rougher and rougher, so they asked him, what should we do? What should we do to you to make the sea calm down for us? Pick me up and throw me into the sea, Jonah said, and it will become calm. I know that it is my fault that this great storm has come upon you. Instead, the men did their best to row back to land, but they could not, for the sea grew even wilder than before. Then they cried out to the Lord, please, Lord, do not let us die for taking this man's life. Do not hold us accountable for killing an innocent man for you, Lord. Then they took Jonah and threw him overboard, and the raging sea grew calm. At this, the men greatly feared the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him. So, Jonah, he was trying to avoid the Lord on the ship. The sailors were like, what can we do to appease your God? And Jonah is like, throw me out there. They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to kill him, but they did plead with his God, please don't take it out on us. Jonah is asking us to do this. So they throw him out there, and then the storm calmed. But just seeing this, you think about it for your own life, what is God calling you to right now that you may be avoiding, right? What is it? Is it something new and different than you've done before? Is it something that will take the strength of God? I mean, Jonah did not like dealing with the Ninevites. He called them wicked, evil. If you read through chapter 2, you see his prayer, So there's so much in here, but just seeing Jonah, really his initial response is, I don't want to do it, but that God still pursued him, and God had an assignment for him. And so it took for Jonah to be thrown out into the sea for it to calm. But then God still had to deal further with Jonah. As a lot of us know, Jonah ended up being in the belly of a whale, basically it was 3 days, 3 nights. And so looking at that, God, pretty much humbled Jonah, in that time frame, to a point of where Jonah had to rely on the Lord and answer the Lord's calling, obey the Lord's assignment for him. Chapter 2 talks about him being in the belly of the whale. He prays while he's in the belly of the whale. Now the Lord provided a huge fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. From inside the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord. He said, in my distress, I called to the Lord, and he answered me. From deep in the realm of the dead, I called for help, and you answered. You listened to my cry. He hurled me into the depths, into the very heart of the sea, and the current swirled around me. All your waves and breakers swept over me. I said, I have been banished from your sight, yet I will look again toward your holy temple. The engulfing waters threatened me, the deep surrounded me, seaweed was wrapped around my head. To the roots of the mountains I sank down. The earth beneath barred me in forever. But you, Lord, my God, brought life up from the pit. When my life was ebbing away, I remembered you, Lord, and my prayer rose to you, to your holy temple. Those who cling to worthless idols turn away from God's love for them, but I, with shouts of grateful praise, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will make good. I will say salvation comes from the Lord, and the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land. And so really looking at that, we see, how God is willing to help us out, help us to understand there is a calling on our lives, and he does want us to obey. And he will continue to pursue us to get that, to help us understand that. And Jonah prayed and he humbled himself before God. And once he did and realized, he's God's servant, he is here to do God's will on earth, and God freed him from the belly of the fish. So much like us, those of us who are resisting God's calling, avoiding it, or starting it and stopping it, that God will continue to pursue us with that dream, with that vision he has to use us for his glory. And so much like Jonah, whatever it takes to help us understand, it is about building God's kingdom and being used for God, and not for selfish gain, but really, for God's kingdom. Being here on social media, again, it's a calling I believe that God has put on my heart, and I continue to work at it. Sometimes I blow it. Sometimes, it's more the Spirit. So I'm growing as I do this as well. And again, it's all to his glory, and however we can use it, even if someone finds it, a year from now or what have you, it is to build God's kingdom and to plant those seeds and let God water them. And so that's what we're here for, ultimately, in whatever we're doing, is to honor God. All right. And that's what Jonah's call was, to obey and honor God with his life. Okay. We are living sacrifices, and that is what we're here for. And God will provide the rest as long as we follow his direction and let him help us love the people he's put in our care for a season, because people come and go, All right. And I appreciate you tuning in today. I hope this was helpful for you. If you are having a challenge right now, understanding God's calling, his assignment, and I know for myself, I am humbling myself and trusting God's plan and continuing to build, no matter how long it takes. Just trusting God. He is doing things, that we may not understand in the moment. All right. So again, I hope you're blessed by this message. Take care, and God bless.